Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's another edition of the Last Word on Rugby podcast. We are chatting all things South African rugby, some good news, some sad news coming out of the wires in South Africa this week with the retirement of the injury enforced retirement of decorated block prop Stephen Kitshoff. But then also some good news that there's more local derbies returning this weekend. One more to go after this when the Sharks and the Lions take each other on in Durban. And then we get to see the South African players take on some foreign legions again. It's been a while. I think that's due to the Six Nations, but hopefully the tours coming up for some of the guys in Europe will provide some good news away from home. We know the Stormers need it. Ashfaq, Mike, thanks for joining me again this morning. Okay, we can start with Kitsi. Yes, like we were all maybe hoping that after that neck surgery things will go the other way and he would be able to return to the rugby field rather than announcing his retirement, eh?
Yeah,
Uh, you
it's such
guys,
such a sad situation because, I mean, I was there when Kutsi made his debut for the Stormers as an 18-year-old, and you saw this kid having just come out of school, and it's not just a youngster on the wing. He was right in the heart of the pack as a loosehead prop, and you thought, wow, how's he gonna cope? And look what he achieved throughout his career. Unbelievable stint for the Stormers. Two stints, of course, for the Stormers. He went to Bordeaux as well for a while. Springboks, great record there. Two World Cup gold medals. Um, yeah, just his longevity also in the game. I mean, he played a lot of games for the Stormers. I think like 138 games, despite having spent a few years in France as well. And he was always that reliable guy that you know what you're gonna get, and it was always at a high level. You almost never doubted Stephen Kitshoff, whether it comes to scrummaging, carrying the ball in a tight loose, making big hits, lifting in the lineouts. It was always of a high standard. He very rarely had an off game or game where he battled in any of those facets. So that's almost like the greatest tribute you can pay to him because he may not be as flashy as maybe some other players or certainly as some of the backs that we have in the Springbok team and World Rugby, but you know what you got from him, and it was always at a good level. And he won penalties as well in the scrums, and the way he was able to almost play 80 minutes every game um, for the Stormers, and of course the Boks until this whole bomb squad thing came in. But yeah, he played most of the minutes of most of his games. And what a fantastic career. Unfortunate that he's got to hang up the boots at 33, but yeah, life happens. So, but yeah, well done, Stephen Kitshoff.
and I think as much as we celebrate Kitsy's career, and he had a fantastic career. What we must also bear in mind, and he himself said it, he was lucky that he got to 33 years of age. I mean, a guy like Julian Riedlinghuis, who was on Lions press conference duty earlier this week, I mean, he was quite young into his career, had exactly the same neck injury, and had to retire after 8 games. I also thought there was something interesting that Kitsy said, in his sort of farewell press conference, if you like, was that he said a couple of years ago already he was finding that the younger players were snapping at his heels, and he wasn't quite as agile as he used to be in certain areas, and he had to work harder. Yeah, so he even himself said he wondered if he could have got to the next World Cup, and with this unfortunate farewell to him, I wonder if we're going to start seeing a bit of a changing of the guard now. That great squad of Russies. I mean, there's quite a few guys sort of in that age group of Stephen Kitshoff. We might start seeing a couple more falling by the wayside, as sort of father time takes its toll. But yeah, a good career, well done to him. He won 2 World Cups.
And the other great thing that he said, he didn't want to stand in the way of the youngsters that are coming through. You're talking about your Gerard Steenekamp,
Mm,
your Ntutuku Mtunu, your Jan Hendrik Wessels that's making that shift that Rassie wants.
mm,
And that's a great thing to see of a player that realized, yes, I have achieved what I wanted to,
mm.
but now maybe yes, I've had this injury. I could have gone on, risked it, but he decided, no, let me step back because there are other guys that can take up
Mm.
the sword and fight forward for the box.
Yeah, he's a gentleman, and that's how we remember him as a great player and also a great ambassador for the sport off the field. So well done to him. He deserves all the accolades he gets.
And also the fact that he started at 18, so and especially in the front row, you
Mm.
can understand the toll that would have taken on his body.
Yes,
And,
yes,
as I said,
100%.
playing most of the minutes of certainly the Stormers games, it eventually catches up, but again, to be able to play for so long as a youngster, where his body probably hadn't fully developed yet as an 18-year-old, to play Super
Yeah,
Rugby for the Stormers. That's
Mm.
just unbelievable. Just a personal note there. I was a mighty first team loose head prop for the mighty Plumstead High School. So I packed down in a few scrums myself over the years, and it's not a pretty place to be, guys. I know, Mike, you also were a wonderful rugby player in your day, but yeah, so packing down in the front row, it's not for the faint-hearted. Things happen there that are unexplainable, and only those who've been in that front row will know. So again, what Kitshoff has achieved over such a long career, having started so young, a magnificent career for him.
Yeah, and talking about that magnificent Stormers career, I mean, a URC championship, he won captaining the Stormers against the Bulls. They won't have him in their corner this weekend when they fly up to Pretoria in that URC derby. It's the return one. Ashfaq, I know we've been writing away about it, focusing on that bull scrum. Do you think the Stormers have what it takes to stand up this time? They got demolished the last time they faced the bull scrum.
Yeah, they always get up as we said previously, when it's the Bulls against the Stormers, both teams just go to another level. And certainly that's the case for the Stormers at the moment, because we know the struggles that they've had this season, particularly on the injury front, and the results also haven't gone their way. I mean, that game against the Bulls at Cape Town Stadium, they coulda, shoulda, woulda won that game. Apart from that final kick now of Clayton Blommetjies, they had many other opportunities too. And they should take heart from that game, because they know they can do it. They know they can take on this Bulls team who have this juggernaut pack, particularly with the scrums. Willie Leroux now seems to have settled down at Fly-Off as well. I felt he was very good last week against the Lions. So then, a guy like Stedman Khan's coming back into that backline as well, just adding a bit of a point of difference on the Bulls attack. So I think the Bulls may actually be stronger this time around than they were at the Cape Town Stadium. And I feel that they would have learned a few lessons from that game, in terms of allowing the Stormers back into it, and just giving them a sniff, because we know once the Stormers, even if they're down 20 points with 10 minutes to go, they have the
Yeah,
ability
yeah.
and players to win it in the end. Although the last time it was almost like a one-man Warwick Galan show there. But I feel if the forwards can at least win their own ball, not necessarily steal the Bulls' lineouts or scrums, but if the Stormers can get their own ball, and they'll have a chance, because at Loftus as well, although the pitch is not in a great condition, I wrote
Yeah,
a
it's bad.
column this week about Mamelodi Sundowns should actually build their own stadium, because now they're still sometimes sharing Loftus with the Bulls, and just because of the heavy rains in Gauteng, the pitch is really in a bad state. Because what I was going to say is that normally Loftus is a quick surface, and that sometimes suits a team like the Stormers, who will go all out attack and just want to play with width. So that's another factor there, and we'll probably may see the Stormers in having to kick a bit more, because the bounce of the
Mm.
ball on such a pitch can really be a leveler.
I just want to add to that, as like you mentioned, Villy coming right. I thought I think the Bulls are now becoming more of a complete side. They had that disjointed connection between the forwards and the backs. And against the Sharks, the Bulls' backs were pretty ordinary. In fact, I'd say closer to awful. They kind of let the side down in a way. And I thought they really bounced back really strongly. That was a really good backline performance against the Lions. So I think the Stormers are catching the Bulls on an upward trajectory. But like Ashwick has mentioned, it's always these games are a different game to other games. Stormers versus Bulls, things happen that don't ordinarily happen. But yeah, for the Stormers to beat the Bulls when this Bulls side is looking like they're finding that team unity, it will be a great one.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for the Stormers. I think they just do
Come
not
on,
have
Leeton, man. Say they're
no, they
gonna
just
win.
do
Say
not
the
have the
Stormers are gonna
player
win, Leeton.
capacity to do that. To do that, they would hope for that fight again, but it's really don't see things coming right away from home at Loftus. It might be the case when they travel totally out of South Africa and try and get that last bit of games on the winning trot when they head to Europe and then come back for their host of home games.
Let me
Over in the
ask you,
youth state.
Leeton, do you think they can
Hmm.
still make the playoffs, the Stormers?
Yes, they can actually. That's the magnificent thing of this season's URC. If you look at the points table from position, the Lions, where are they? What, 12th, 13th? From 14 up to 7th, 8th. There's like 3 points separating the teams. So it's still doable, it's still makeable, but obviously you have to win games. You don't want to with 5 games left want to come home and then depend on some other results going your way as well. That's why I feel the Lions taking on the Sharks this weekend. They've let a couple of chances slip now with some defeats where they had those games in hand to get past the Stormers even, but they couldn't get that. They couldn't get the bonus point against the Stormers. Couldn't get anything from the Bulls game. So they are more in trouble than the Stormers at this moment, especially facing that Sharks game facing the Sharks at 2:30 on Saturday.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed by the Lions against the Bulls
Yeah,
last week. I really
100%.
thought, we punt him and we say this is a year the Lions are looking really good. I think most of
Exactly. Yeah.
us felt last week that they had a real opportunity to beat a Bulls team. As Mike said, now that just didn't have the cohesion a bit against the Sharks, was the disjointed between the forwards and backs. And you thought of that Lions team and how they attacked the Stormers the last time at Ellis Park and some great runners out wide that they can take on the
Good
Bulls. But then
defense.
they went
Yeah.
down 17-0 in like 13, 14 minutes and you thought, what's
Yeah.
happening here?
Yeah.
At least it showed some fighting spirit to
Yeah,
pull it back to 17-14 at halftime. But then again, second half, they had a few opportunities again. They were held up over the line and some tries were ruled out for infringements in the build-up and all those kind of things. But it's almost like that's always a story with the Lions. Always
Story of the
unlucky,
Lions. Yeah.
always, a knock on here or a ref decision there or, so you just wonder now, when is it gonna actually
yeah,
result in a quarterfinal or actually
yeah.
contending for the title? I don't know, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. At some stage, you've got to start making your own luck, and you're quite right. The Lions are the nearly men of the URC almost, and we forget. Well, it seems like about 3 years ago, never mind the beginning of this season, that they actually started so strongly overseas. I mean, they were second
Four
on
in a
the
row.
table,
Four in
and
a
then
row, yeah, they won four in a row, yeah.
and now they've lost 5 out of their last 6 games. And you look at some of the passages of play they put together, and you just think, but why aren't they just taking that next step? Like this, yeah, they've really got to go for broke on Saturday on their home turf. And I think what a game and prospect, considering the Lions' DNA. They like to have a go. They're a very adventurous team. And that Sharks backline is just it's playing some stage. It almost looks like they're playing sevens rugby. They've got so much pace. Julian Redlinger said a couple of days ago he wouldn't be surprised if there could be some kind of a record for ball and play minutes in this game, because it should really be both teams having a full go. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think the points line could be really high. It could be one of those 40-30 games. Hopefully it lives up to that billing.
Where tackling is an afterthought, Mike.
yeah. Remember all the Northern Hemisphere guys, critics used to say when we were playing in Super Rugby, it was basketball rugby, popcorn rugby, because it was always the Highlanders 45, the Hurricanes 42 or something. There was those kind of games. But anyway, as long as we get some entertainment.
And it will be great if those two teams that's up who are outside the playoffs, if they can start picking up points, because it would just be amazing to have 4 South African sides in a year that Rassie would be using some more. We saw the invitations to that first alignment camp. We would think that he would use some more up-and-coming guys in these Italian and Georgian tests. So to have 4 sides in those playoffs and they do well, 2 of them get a home playoff, the other 2 travel, hopefully burgle something overseas, and come back to have a semi-finals with possibly South African sides. If there's only that consistency from 2 of our sides. We've seen the Stormers, Bulls do it. Then it was the Sharks and the Lions who fell out. Now it's the Lions and Stormers not looking too good. But our teams are up there. The South African teams are up there, and if they can just pull it together, we could see a magical URC playoffs in about 7-8 games time.
And Jake White made a good point over the weekend, saying that, as much as you want to be high up on the log and you want the home playoffs, again, the number 1 ranked team in the URC hasn't won the tournament the last 3 years. And he said that, as much as there was frustrations with how the Bulls have been playing the last few games, he wants him to play the best rugby in those last 3 games, which is a quarterfinal, semi-final, and final. So, by hook or by crook, if we can get into those games, as you said now, Leighton, even teams like the Stormers and Lions, we know they've got, once they have a few guys, Stormers certainly will get a few guys back in terms of firepower on attack. And we know the Lions, they scored some beautiful tries and can hurt you from anywhere on the field. Once off playoff game, they could even beat a team like Leinster or Glasgow. So it's not totally out of the realm to see them competing for the title. It's just a point of getting there, and then it's all to play for in those last 3 weeks.
Yeah. Just going back to that points table that you were going through. The Stormers' biggest fans on Saturday are going to be the Sharks. So they've now closed that gap quite significantly. They're now 6 points behind the Bulls. So, Stormers pull off an upset. Sharks beat the Lions. Suddenly it's 1 point. But yeah, that's just an aside. I think the Sharks and Bulls will eventually be carrying our flag. But I agree with your aspect of the Bulls can keep this kind of form. They started to show some foundations of getting the complete game together. Then it's how you finish. It's not how you start.
And of course, the Sharks proved that in the Challenge Cup last season, Mike. Disasters in the URC, and then they put that run together and went all the way. So, it can be done, guys.
Well, they were really. I don't need to be reminded that they couldn't make the playoffs of the URC, and then they put together a run. They started in the Currie Cup, funnily enough, at Loftus, where they had that semi-final win. Then they went to Ellis Park a week later, won there, and then the next thing they won a trophy. But yeah, that's actually something to maybe reflect on. Is the Sharks seem to have it right on how to play on the half-out. They actually win there now more often than they lose. Um, and Jordan Hendricks was saying in the Sharks press conference how the having been at the Lions for so long, they always try to run teams, the coastal teams, off their feet. And he said they're expecting that again. But that might just well play into the Sharks' favor because they seem to not have the psychological issue of the altitude, and they like to play running rugby. So, they'll probably be say if you want to play a running game, bring it on. We're up for it. So yeah, let's see how they play.
Yeah, that's going to be. I think can't. I want to say that's going to be the tightest clash of the weekend because of what the Stormers are doing at the moment. But then Ashfaq has
Or not
mentioned
doing,
plenty
or
of
not doing.
times, or not doing. You've mentioned plenty of times the Stormers do stand up. They when they got their backs against the wall. So I can't even discount that. But yeah, for me, it's going to be the Sharks. It's going to be the Bulls, the Lions, and Stormers. They have a lot to do in terms of banking that consistency to string wins. The Stormers, on that hand, is string wins away from home together, and then not just be hometown bullies. And then the Lions just to get that consistency going. That one week they look so good, the next week the players just don't pitch up. I mean, I'm going to mention him now, but I expected way more from Kewen Horn in that Bulls game. Expected more from Henku van Wyk in that Bulls game. They were absolutely phenomenal against the Stormers, and then the next week they just went away. So sorry guys for doing that, but sometimes we have to mention what we see and talk about it. Mike, just your thoughts on what the weekend's results will be.
Yeah, I think you've summed it up. I know Ashfaq's going to throw a spanner in the works with the predictions. Yeah,
The left
yeah,
field.
and I think the Bulls have got the right form. I think they'll have too much for the Stormers, and I think the Sharks will win as well. I think they took so much confidence out of that win. When their last game was in Pretoria, they were down to 12 men at one stage. But they've just got those attacking threats. I think it'll be the Bulls and the Sharks for sure.
Come on, Lions, man. Come on, Lions. And this is nothing against the Sharks, Mike. It's just, it's so frustrating, as I mentioned earlier, with the Lions,
Yeah,
blowing hot and cold all the time.
yeah.
Put it together. They can do it. They've got the players.
Mm,
Selection will also be crucial. I felt they missed JC Pretorius last week
I
against
did.
the Bulls.
Yeah.
He's foraging on the ground and just his ability to spark things on attack. As you mentioned, Leighton Horn needs to be more involved. I think Edwin van der Merwe needs to get a bit more ball than he does
Yeah,
because
his
whenever he
hands, yeah.
does, something happens. So
Yes.
so just feed him. Bring him into the play. Even
Mm.
if he comes in off his wing and runs through midfield, he's got the step and the pace to break the line. So utilize him. Franco Horn, of course, the number 8, always strong and powerful, but he can also be more influential like he normally is. But last week I felt he wasn't quite at his usual high standard. So yeah, come on Lions, you can beat the Sharks. And then Bullstormers, as a born and bred Cape Townian, go Bulls.
As a side note there, go Bulls. I don't know how much truth is in this, but one of my spies on, as you can see behind me, my golf club's always at the ready. But one of my spies at Bellville Golf Club sent me a photo, and apparently Jake White was in Bellville this week, yesterday. Don't know exactly how true that is, but the
Maybe he
Stormers
was
trained in
peering over
Bellville.
the wall there at the training grounds,
Yeah, the
Leighton.
Stormers were training in Bellville, and the golf course and
Exactly.
their training base is literally like 2-3 minutes drive from each other. I hope he
And
enjoyed his
sometimes
round.
Jake talks a lot more about the Stormers than his own Bulls team.
That is true. That is true. I hope he enjoyed his golf round if he was in Cape Town, and then yes, like the prep for the rest of the week and into Saturday. Gents, thanks for joining me again this morning. It's been lovely chatting. We will catch up again in a week's time. We will hopefully have some good results for the URC teams and them climbing the ladder. This was another episode of The Last Word on Rugby. We try to bring you the news and all of the controversies and all of the things you want to hear every week, brought to you by independent newspapers. Have a good week, guys. Thanks for joining me again. Cheers.
Cheers.